Check this out. This is something you don't see very often on a ring cam. This woman fights off a robber with bug spray. Bug spray? Bug spray? What are you gonna do? Get away from the register. Give me the money. I don't have anything. I'll check. I'll get the key. I'll get the key. Psst, motherfucking bug spray. We'll take a look at this body cam footage. There's no sound, but it's already muted. So, okay, this person goes in, tries to rob. The woman unidentified. That's the person who's gonna probably spray some bug spray. So yeah, she sprayed the bug spray. And that person right there, you know information, call 886-TIPS. And they'll help you out here and you'll get a great reward. Now, a lot of questions come to mind. First of all, where's the pepper spray? Where's the thing called pepper spray? You got pepper spray, you use it to spray away the person, burn the eyes. Yes, if it's accidental, then you get him or her diluted. But props to the woman for just using bug spray. I mean, if it gets on your body. If that ever does happen to you, then just talk to somebody. Talk to your doctor and say, hey, I got bug spray in my eyes. And they'll help you out, try to take care of you. That's the way it should be. Alright. Would you ever imagine being concerned about speed humps in your neighborhood? You were so concerned about this, then you had to go file a claim with the city. In some states from Barcelona, they claim that they need speed humps installed. And why is that? Would you ever want speed humps installed? Would you ever imagine your street getting speed humps? Well, in one city, in one street, that's what happened. And as we're about to show you, everybody wants them on their street. Here's Tony Halamir.
This Southside neighborhood have complained about speeders on their streets.
Mailboxes completely just destroyed due to hit and runs. We did actually have one neighbor on that corner red house. A vehicle ended up going through her mailbox and stalled on the front yard. And we've had vehicles clipped. We've had many animals clipped as well.
Galvan Elementary is within walking distance from Scott Garza's house. That raises even bigger concerns among other neighbors.
It's less than 200 yards away from where we stand right now, and they don't feel safe walking their children.
Garza and other neighbors at Barcelona Estates feel there's one thing the city has failed to do that they say would solve their problem.
I think a lot of that is enabled due to the lack of safety devices in the neighborhood.
Scott Garza works in risk management. He claims the city is being reckless by not installing traffic safety measures on his roads.
One traffic control device is a matter of thousands of dollars. One severe injury claim can be anywhere from $100,000 to $500,000.
Garza requested speed humps be installed on his street.
I think at this point, any investment in public safety is paramount. Whether it's a passive control or an active control measure.
But the city says Garza's street doesn't meet the criteria to have the speed humps installed. That includes things like a high average of daily traffic as high as 400 vehicles per day, and an average travel speed above the 30-mile-per-hour limit on Garza Street. The city says they have determined the street has an average travel speed of 28 miles per hour. I asked the city if they consider exceptions considering this subdivision is less than a mile away from Galvan Elementary, and they said they conducted that traffic study during the school year to account for that traffic. From the South Side, I'm your neighborhood news reporter, Tony Jaramillo, Chris 6 News.
Now, if you wanted speed humps installed, you probably wanted a new sidewalk on Flyable Drive, right? Maybe so. But then you got to fight with the city to say, well, this is what we need, and that and the third. Basically, what you need to do is realize that stuff happens. And then the question I have is, where's the evidence? The destroyed mailbox. If you're going to represent the case before the city, you need to present evidence. We now live in days to where you need proof. And if you don't have your proof, you know what's going to happen to you? You're not going to get what you want. You want to get what you want? You are going to have to sit there and say to yourself, well, I need to find proof, evidence. Do your homework, do your research, gather up evidence. And maybe then you'll convince the city that, we need these speed humps. But according to what we saw here, they can't install them. That would raise alarms. Safety comes first. And even then, we put safety on the map as well as education. Yesterday, we showed you Baltimore Project, Crisis in the Classroom. And there's a lot more in these crises in the classroom when we return. Also, this student fights for his life after being choked on the school bus. How can that happen? Please stay with us. Okay, put yourself in a position for this next story. You're riding on the school bus. You're as a child. You're riding on a school bus, or you're the assistant driver, or the bus aide, and you saw somebody. You saw another student putting another student in a chokehold. What do? Do you sit back and watch it, film it on your cell phone? Sit there and do nothing? Or would you actually step in and break it up and suspend that person from riding the bus? Well, on Friday, it happened. A student was fighting for his life after he was choked on the bus, when another student put him in a chokehold while he was fighting for his life. What really happened on the bus? Did they do everything? But if they did, what the hell's going on? And how do the parents react? Take a look.
With tears in her eyes.
It was a nightmare. Like, you wait to wake up.
And pain in her heart.
He's a happy kid. He, plays video games. He makes jokes. He loves his sister. He loves his grandparents. He loves his stepdad is his best friend.
Jamie Horton tells me about her son, Hayden, who spent the last 19 days fighting for his life.
You say he can't speak? He doesn't talk to you?
He hasn't talked yet. So we get some head nods, fist bumps, cheek kisses.
The story begins on October 11th. According to Jamie Horton, her 12-year-old Kenwood Middle School son is on a Montgomery County school bus. That's picking up high school students for the ride home. That's when Jamie Horton says a 16-year-old high school student, for some reason, puts young Hayden in a chokehold.
It went on for a while. They had him in a headlock. He didn't fight back.
According to Jamie Horton, the school bus driver and a school bus aide both witnessed the chokehold.
There were adults present, and they didn't do anything.
According to Mrs. Horton, the bus incident is captured on video. Horton tells me she's not seen that video, but investigators who have watched it tell her. One of the adults on the bus says, "Tap out, man," a wrestling phrase meaning submission to your opponent.
How do you feel about that, knowing there's two adults standing there watching your son get choked in a bus?
I feel like it instigated it.
According to Jamie Horton, while at home, over the next 9 days, Hayden gets sicker and sicker, experiencing headaches and mobility issues.
He got sick. He couldn't get up.
Then on October 20th, the 12-year-old is brought to Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt. Doctors will tell Jamie Horton Hayden has been experiencing blood clots that have caused multiple strokes, which ultimately leads to emergency brain surgery.
We found out that he had been having strokes and that he had a massive stroke based on a tear in his neck.
They said he had a tear in his neck. Would that be consistent with the incident on the bus?
It's the only thing that lines up.
According to Jamie Horton, her son's decline all begins with the chokehold on that school bus.
What do you want to say to those people on the bus, the adults?
And just like, You're hired to take care of kids. Like, it's your responsibility to keep them safe. Like, you send your kids to school every day and expect them to come home in the way that you left them.
At this hour, Hayden Horton is out of ICU. His mother tells me he will more than likely have to leave the state for special rehab. And the family, well, they've set up a GoFundMe account to offset some of these major expenses. You can find that on our website at WKRN.com. Send it back to you, Mark.
Dylan's going to need a lot of help in the coming months. Andy, thank you. And
Grow a pair, step in, break it up, help out. Grow a pair. Don't you sit there and do nothing and not care. What if that was your child in a chokehold? Would you sit there and do nothing? That was your child. What the hell are you guys doing just sitting there and doing nothing? You're the bus aide. If you're the bus aide, you need to sit there and do something instead of saying, hey guys, knock it off. Knock it off, knock it off. Break it up. Write that child up. Send him off the bus for 3 or 5 days. Do whatever. Again, we live in a society where we don't take responsibility for our actions. Is this bus aide going to be responsible for his or her actions? Maybe. 122 views, and a lot of comments saying, charge 16-year-olds as an adult. At that age, they know damn well what they're doing. Adults who did nothing need to be charged. This is unacceptable. So you better sue the bus company and file a charge with the child who did it. 16-year-olds should be charged with murder, tried as an adult. 2 adults should be charged with accomplices in attempted murder. All should go to prison. A juvenile can be charged as an adult with attempted murder in Georgia. Time for the state's attorney to step up. Exactly! Was their charges pressed? No. The victim was in the hospital. Hadn't they found out it was the 16-year-old's name, the parents would have sat there at that hospital and say, hey, little guy, I'm very sorry that happened to you. Mother would have stepped in. Wrong answer. I'm placing your son under citizen's arrest for attempted murder. Mom go, what? Why? What did I do? What did he do? He would never hurt a little fly. Well, I have video evidence that it was him who did it. You have none. Look at the video. Did you do this? And I've already called the police. Police would come in, charge with attempted murder, and then be tried him as an adult into an adult juvenile detention center. What does that tell you, boys and girls? Everything needs to happen. And what does the school do? Not a damn thing. You know, the Montgomery County School District needs to step in and say, hey, we made a mistake. We need to own up and say, hey, we're sorry. Sorry's not going to cut it. My mom always tells me, whenever I say I'm sorry, my mom always tells me, well, you should have thought about that before you went ahead and did it. Yeah, mother of the 16-year-old, you should have thought about punishing your son. You should have thought about sending him to jail. You know, it'd be a whole great lesson to learn. You know, we live in a society today where we don't take responsibility for our own actions, and if we say something back, we're basically the bully here. So therefore, what you need to do is to take responsibility for your own actions. Hence, when you choose the behavior, you choose the consequences. Jail time for all 3 of the adults and teen. No questions about it. Yes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Makes me very angry. All the shows we've done about education, this one really stood out to me and made me very angry. Again, this chalkboard was on that wall. This story would be one of these stories. So what needs to get done here? Better training, laws passed, and 16-year-olds need to be tried as an adult. No ifs, ands, buts, or excuses. I mean, you could try to put him up. You could try to be like what Peggy Hill did at Dooley. Oh yeah! Holy crap! I never even spank our dog. I know that your son is worse than our dog because he's not. And we have very fine dogs, so they speak blind for your son. There's nothing here for forgiveness. The buses need to be suspended with pay or fired. The teens be charged with tried as an adult. Maybe he'll get a dose of reality. You choose the behavior, you choose the consequences. Now, you may be familiar with yesterday's crisis in a classroom. Well, there is more to the story than meets the eye. Up next, Baltimore schools continue to pay a police officer over $200,000. How is that? Please stay with us. Yesterday, I showed you Project Baltimore, Crisis in the Classroom. Not near to the end of the video where my mom stepped in, and by the way, I do apologize for that. It probably will never happen again. Yesterday, we showed you Project Baltimore, a series of reports talking about crisis in the Baltimore City classrooms. Not just in our classrooms, but in our schools. We focused in on the state superintendent. We focused in on, we basically unlocked the whole spectrum all about the state superintendent and why he resigned. But there's more to this than probably meets the eye. Tonight, there's new information right after the state superintendent's resignation. A Baltimore City police officer was paid by the school district. You ready for this? Over $200,000 taxpayer money when he was charged with collecting taxes. Now, why would that happen when he has a criminal record? Why? Here's Chris Papps.
When you hear stories like this,
David Williams with the Taxpayers Protection Alliance is stunned by what Project Baltimore just told him.
common sense dictates that you don't reward somebody who allegedly stole money by giving them more taxpayer money.
I sent to the police academy.
Baltimore City Schools police officer Lawrence Smith is a man who continues to make news.
That way! All right.
Smith is an 8-time state champion high school football coach, dubbed a unicorn by the president of the police union. Here he is, pictured with the mayor and city school CEO. But recently, he's been making news for the wrong reasons. On September 8th, 2023, Smith was arrested by the FBI, accused of tax violations and fraudulently submitting overtime to obtain more than $215,000 taxpayer dollars. And Project Baltimore has now learned, after Smith was arrested, Baltimore City Schools continued to pay him for nearly an entire year.
It sends the wrong signal to taxpayers, and it sends the wrong signal to the students.
When Smith was indicted last September, North Avenue placed him on administrative leave, but the district would not tell Fox 45 News if he was on paid leave. Now, through a public records request, we have learned Smith was being paid until September 6, 2024, meaning taxpayers continued to pay him his full salary for 364 days after he was arrested. Smith's pay was suspended, according to city schools, under a state law that allows the district to suspend a police officer's pay if the police officer is charged with a disqualifying crime. It appears city schools could have suspended Smith without pay on the day he was arrested. But the district chose not to.
This suspension without pay should have happened immediately.
What all this means is, according to City Schools' most recent employee salary database, taxpayers likely paid Smith around $93,000 over the past year after he was accused of stealing more than $215,000. 93 grand.
That's more than the median income of someone that what they make in Baltimore City. This is inexcusable.
District leadership will not interview with Fox 45 News, but we did receive a statement that read, individuals are entitled to due process when accused of a crime, no matter the news or social media headlines. Baltimore City Public Schools, City Schools, has been carefully monitoring the adjudication of this case and taking appropriate steps based on what occurs. Per Maryland law, City Schools reserves the right to recoup any compensation paid by City Schools to the employee between September 8th, 2023 and the present, based on the outcome of this case. Keep in mind, in January 2023, Project Baltimore first exposed that Smith was logging police overtime when he appeared to not be working. We uncovered Facebook Live videos that showed Smith driving a boat on the Chesapeake Bay, coaching football, or on vacation when his overtime form said he was working. Yet, despite these videos, when Smith was arrested 8 months later, City Schools kept him on payroll. What does this tell you about Baltimore City Public Schools?
It shows you that there's really failed leadership at every level in the school system. It's no wonder that the school system is hemorrhaging money and that kids aren't being educated. What's the lesson here? The lesson for kids in Baltimore City schools is if you steal, then you're going to be rewarded. Success should be rewarded, not failure.
Smith's jury trial, according to federal court records, is set for May 2025. If convicted, he faces decades in prison. Fox 45 News will stay on this story. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
I'm Kai Jackson. Thank you for watching. Here's another video to watch. Also, please take a...
So we'll see on this case, and on a future show, we'll let you know what happens on May 2025. Therefore, the superintendent of the schools, this guy, the holy trinity of thieves. What'd you expect? Baltimore City. The burning of the straw man. The rot runs deep as the core. Well, diversity strikes again. He must have known here for the bodies were buried. Reputations. If you steal, you shouldn't get rewarded. No, if you steal, you're going to get in trouble. I don't care. You should not be working overtime. If you're being paid, if you get paid vacations, then you get paid for your vacations. But if you're not paid, you're suspended with that pay. But if you're suspended with pay, they'll probably get taken out of your paycheck. But it's coming from the Baltimore City taxpayers. What do we need to do? What do they need to do about this? What they need to do is simply go to that trial and say, well, he's wasting a lot of money. He can defend himself saying, well, I don't know what they were talking about with those Facebook Live videos. I can just delete them and they won't even have a problem. But state laws are being made to prevent stuff like this from happening ever again.
Fighting for...
Every person has their own excuses, and if you make it it's always an excuse after excuse after excuse. And when you continue making excuses, then something bad will happen. And we should know it. There was a stabbing that happened just 10 days ago.
Yes.
resourceful. And
a teenager is behind bars right after that stabbing. Take a look.
This area of where we've seen crime scene investigators and medical examiners clear out of this entrance area of the high school in Northeast Manor, but I can imagine investigators are still inside of the school trying to piece together what led up to the stabbing that left Darren Loving dead today. Now, the information that we have is still limited as the investigation is ongoing, but here's what we know so far. Manor Police, Manor ISD Police, and Austin Travis County EMS responded to a call around 12:45 today for reports that a student had been stabbed during a fight. EMS says the victim is a minor. We now know that is Mr. Loving, and they tried resuscitating him, but he died at the scene, unfortunately. Now, we spoke with students today who tell me they're still processing this tragedy.
I felt like, honestly, really, really shocked. I thought this was like a really surreal experience. I never expected like any of this to be happening, especially at like our school.
Now, in tonight's update, Manor Police say the suspect is in the Travis County Jail tonight facing a murder charge. The department's Criminal Investigation Division is also investigating. The district released students early from school today. They also canceled classes for tomorrow and Thursday. Walt.
Thank you, Abigail. We're trying to get more reaction tonight. This happened at Manor Senior High School, which is located on Farm to Market Road 973 right here, next to Lusitano Street. The school is about 15 miles east of downtown Austin. Our live team coverage continues tonight with CBS Austin's Andrew Freeman, who has been working to get reaction from students and parents as the students were getting picked up today. What are they saying?
Well, I spoke with students who say they frankly don't feel safe, and while they've seen or heard of other fights on campus, this level of violence is completely new. Jeremiah Henry says he was in the cafeteria when the stabbing happened and describes the scene as chaotic. Henry says he saw the student allegedly responsible for the stabbing being chased by 3 other students who were yelling at him to stop.
The best friend of the guy that was on the ground, she was outside, so she didn't know what was happening, but somebody went outside and told her, and so she rushed inside and she saw him right there on the ground and nobody was over there. And then she started yelling, screaming, and hitting the floor and the walls.
Senior Felicia Horton says while she only heard about the stabbing, she knew the victim, and it's left her feeling uneasy.
I just think we need, like, teachers, students, need a lot of counseling. I think that students need to have more sympathy for this situation.
Both seniors I spoke with say they knew both the victim, Darren Loving, and the suspect, Mac Brown Mabonwe. Right now, there are no classes scheduled for tomorrow or Thursday, but Henry says he hopes the district gives them even more time to process what's happened. Reporting live in Manor, Andrew Freeman, CBS Austin News.
Thank you, Andrew. There's still so much to learn from what happened today. This is a breaking news story. We'll continue to keep you updated on air and online at cbsaustin.com to bring you the very latest on this disturbing story.
Wow. Everyone's got to take precautions here when it comes to safety, and safety is always a number one priority. If you're not safe, that's what can happen to you. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Last season to a couple seasons ago, we focused in on child labor laws that are being violated. Not just here in the U.S., but in every country that you can think of. We also focused in on one that was violating the laws of the country. Let's take a second look now into this story, which we first showed you a couple seasons ago. It's about children working adult hours, which is a violation of the country's law. And as Stone Films is going to show us, no one understands the country's law.
In the season of giving, the getting has never been better for the makers of the enchanting intriguing on Santa's wish list.
Parents are crazed trying to get the hottest and hardest to find toys.
With projected sales in the billions, industry executives like David Miller couldn't be more pleased.
Toys R Us reported record profits. Mattel bought Tyco. You and your family are back in the business. It's been a great year for toys. I'm reading that parents are fighting in the stores because they can't get enough.
That's wonderful, isn't it?
But as wonderful as it is for the companies and their stockholders, we wondered who's paying the price for the profits in Toyland. You may have seen the protests at home.
No! To the return of the sweater!
But tonight, our hidden camera investigation reveals what you haven't seen as we take you behind the barbed wire and prison-like walls of toy factories in Southeast Asia, where 2 million workers produce for your family and the world 80% of all toys.
The Toy Manufacturers of America have a code of conduct.
Yes.
What does your code of conduct say?
People will be employed willingly, that they will be paid in accordance with the laws of the country that you're manufacturing in, that child labor and prison labor will not be used.
And if members of your organization find that child labor or other labor abuses are present?
Our industry leaders are on record as saying they will close factories that are found to do that summarily, and they will do everything they can to blackball those manufacturers.
Close them down.
Mm-hmm.
Dateline decided to find out just how well toy companies are living up to that code of conduct.
This is where Santa's helpers really come from, and they come cheap. These shanties along the muddy back roads of places like Medan, Indonesia. They are young women and children, some of them as young as 13 years old, working long hours so that children in America can put frilly dresses on America's favorite doll.
My name is Matsiti, I'm 14 years old, and I have worked at the factory for 1 year.
What kinds of things are you making at the factory?
I make clothes for Barbies like this one.
What's the last grade you finished in school?
5th grade in elementary school.
Meet Wasiti, Ramla, and Nening. Though only elementary school graduates, they represent Indonesia's economic secret to keeping the world's multi-billion-dollar toy industry profitable. While most know Indonesia as a land of great physical beauty, businesses have long relied on Indonesia for its greatest resource, its people. They are plentiful, cheap, and young. Drive down the back roads of industrial areas like Bekasi, and you will see the signs.
Is this when your workers need it?
Go behind the guarded walls, as we did, undercover, and you will see the faces. And the telltale signs of youth, 2 million strong, that help drive multinational companies to prosper. While half a world away, her American counterparts are getting out of school and heading for the mall, every day at 2:30, Ramla gets ready for her 40-minute bike ride to her factory job at one of Mattel's largest contractors for Barbie clothes, a job she's had since she was 14.
How many hours do you work each day?
From 3:30 to 11 p.m., about 7 hours at the night shift.
Do you know that children your age are not supposed to work at night?
I know about that, but I cannot change shifts.
Are there many children like you working in the factory?
A lot. There are some children who have not finished elementary school yet, but if the factory needs them, they will be hired.
Though the girls say the factory is clean and the workers treated well, employing children full-time and at night violates Indonesian law. To get a closer look, Dateline posed as toy manufacturers.
Nice to meet you. You're making the clothes. Hi. Phillips, how are you? Nice to see you.
We chose this factory because it deals exclusively with a big American toy company, which means it should be following that code of conduct. We talked with the owner's son, Nicholas.
4.5 years with Mattel.
Yes.
Mostly Barbie?
Mostly all of them are Barbies.
But all of these clothes for Barbie you're making for export primarily to the U.S.?
Yes. Shipped back to the U.S.
Should companies in this country manufacturing abroad be accountable and responsible for the conditions of it?
Yes, they should.
Why?
Because one must run a factory in a lawful, ethical way.
Remember, the girls we talked to started their factory jobs as young as 13. a violation of Indonesian law as well as toy manufacturers' ethics. But it didn't take much inspection to understand the appeal of underage workers, young, female, and eager to earn the minimum wage of just over $2 a day. Workers like Nening willingly put up with the hardship.
I feel tired and back pain. I also feel uncomfortable in my eyes because I have to concentrate all the time on the work for which I always have to use a needle.
Although buses are provided during the day for some, most workers on the night shift, like Nening, have to brave the dark roads for a lonely, hour-long ride home.
I get scared biking home alone. Once I was chased by some people.
The night we followed her, the road was so treacherous we had to say goodbye at midnight. With 10 brothers and sisters in this 2-room house, the income Nening makes, a little over $11 a week, is essential to the survival of her family.
I worry about her coming home late. I'm afraid someone bad will make trouble.
She does this job because our family is very poor. She works very hard. Neneng always gives the money to the family.
Can you show me your room?
Like Neneng's family, the 8 members of Ramla's family depend on the $2 a day she earns at the factory to make ends meet. As in so many Indonesian families, Ramla's mother and her father are unemployed.
This is where you sleep?
Me, my grandmother, and my brother.
Are the wages at the factory good wages? Could a family live on those wages?
Not even close. I myself spend about 6,000 rupiah for daily expenses. My daughter only earns 4,600 rupiah.
Struggling to earn a living wage and working 8-hour shifts, I learned, doesn't keep the girls from being little girls.
What do you think of the products that your factory makes? The clothes for these Barbie dolls? Do you like them?
We all like them.
Do you own a Barbie doll? Do you have a Barbie doll yourself?
A fake one.
A real one would be pretty expensive. How long would you have to work at your jobs to have enough money to buy a Barbie doll? A real Barbie doll? 1 year?
Even 2 years, we wouldn't be able to buy it.
2 years of work. You still wouldn't be able to afford it. So these are dolls for children with money in the United States.
Yes.
But perhaps most disturbing was hearing from the girls that under the guise of training, the factory pays child workers only half of their wage, just over $1 a day. The girls say it was 9 months before they got their full wage. We told industry spokesman David Miller what we learned.
Mattel people would be stunned to hear what you say, because they are as good at monitoring as any company in the world.
Is Mattel often here looking? Do they come to the plant to inspect?
They do. You send people over.
Frequently?
Not to inspect.
And Nicholas confided something else to us. His factory used to be in Jakarta. He moved it to Medan because labor here is cheaper.
Labor is still easy to control, easy to manage, and the price is still cheaper than outside. So like you say, it's a well-kept secret.
And you like it that way?
Oh yeah, definitely. We we have the advantage that way.
Isn't it always about shaving when you can, producing it for the lowest possible cost in order to maximize profit?
Is there anything wrong with that?
Only if it leads to abuses.
Abuses are not acceptable under any set of circumstances. And to use the excuse that you must shave your price so that you can't pay your employees their lawful wage is not justified. It's not ethically correct.
Hi, nice to see you.
But as our investigation continued, we would visit other factories making many of your favorite toys. And while we heard a lot about long shifts and low prices, the phrase ethically correct never came up.
And that ethically correct would have been if it had been for those living conditions. When we return, more of this investigation, especially the living conditions in one country. And after that, be prepared for another Baltimore edition. As student graduates without learning, as we hear from one student who graduates without learning. Why would Baltimore even do that? Stay with us. Returning to our story, you've seen factories in many country that's violating That's violating country law. Kids working under 8-hour shifts full time and at night. That's a violation of law. Now we're going to show you what happens to when they shave the prices. We're also going to take you to a country to where the living conditions are very unacceptable. Is something going to be done to prevent this from ever happening again? And what, if any, can be done when one person speaks out? Here's Stone Phillips.
I like Barbie. I feel sad for Americans don't buy Barbie dolls. I'm glad that I make clothes for Barbie.
While Neneng and the thousands of young female toy workers of Indonesia sew, stitch, and sweat to make America's favorites, what they don't know is their jobs may not be there for long. Jobs that may move to a cheaper country, as they've moved in years past, from Japan to Korea, from Korea to Indonesia. It's what critics call a race to the bottom, from Pooh to Paddington. Toy companies shop for overseas factories in fierce competition to underbid one another, often at a cost to their workers. Posing as a toy company, I'm Mr. Phillips.
For vended toys?
Dateline went undercover in Asia. I'm Mr. Phillips. To see just how cheaply we could knock off an American staple, the Vermont teddy bear.
This is what we're interested in doing. We have real suede here on the feet.
We want to get your best price.
With the help of Joe Roy Allen, a retired textile manufacturer, we learned there is method to the bidding madness.
How much does it cost to produce this?
Factory number 1, uniforms, 8-hour shifts, well-lit individual benches, and the price tag for our bear, $4.10. We did better at factory number 2, longer shifts, 12 hours here, outdated equipment, exposed electrical wires, locked fire exits. And the bid here?
My price now is 2.8.
What happened to 275?
275 up to 3.
And even better at factory number 3.
I'd like you to meet Mr. Phillips and Mr. Allen.
Yes.
We were surprised to find that our lowest bid came from a contractor who services some of the best-known brands.
Who's your biggest customer right now in the United States? Walt Disney.
Mr. Lee proudly displayed familiar American classics.
Oh yes, applause.
And then we talked price.
Now we get to the price. Your price is 220 up to 230.
After surveying the floor and talking to the workers, we soon discovered how Mr. Lee may keep his costs so low.
He's so cute. He just finished elementary school and he work here for 3 months. 3,900 a day. I think that is enough.
Underage workers earning below minimum wage, making Paddington bears for an American company called Eden Toys, a company owned by David Miller's family. Remember, Miller is president of the Toy Manufacturers of America and a strong supporter of its code of conduct.
Good code.
Can you enforce it?
I challenge anyone to come forward with the name of a company and the practice that's taking place. I guarantee that our industry will see that that factory is out of business.
Then we told him what we found. Underage workers making bears for his brother's company.
Does it surprise you to hear that?
Yes?
Should it surprise you if you're doing your inspections?
Should it surprise me? It would surprise me because it shouldn't happen. I'm shocked, to be honest.
Underage workers and undesirable conditions hardly shocked Joe Roy Allen.
What has stood out the most to you from what we've seen here?
Oh, the poverty.
Allen, who says his textile business went under because he couldn't compete with sweatshop labor, insists that labor this cheap usually comes at some human cost.
So what's all of this about?
Greedonomics. This is about getting product made as cheap as you possibly can, regardless of morals or anything else. Just getting it made cheap.
And maximizing your profit.
That is correct. The business is entitled to make profit. But I think business has a moral obligation to the workers.
I think fair is the key thing.
Pat Burns is Chief Executive Officer of the Vermont Teddy Bear Company.
We don't gouge. We cover our costs and make a fair profit. And I think that's our marching order as far as the financial side of the balance sheet is concerned.
As a toy company, Vermont Teddy Bear is an endangered species.
Looks good. How's it going today?
Looks to me like you did a great job.
One of the few still making its product in America. With workers making $7.25 an hour, plus health benefits and a stock plan, labor costs here aren't cheap. Last year, the factory considered shutting down and moving production overseas. How much could Burns have saved? Well, remember, each bear cost him just over $14 here.
We took one of your teddy bears overseas with us.
You
To
did?
Indonesia and to China.
What did you think of them?
Well, everybody liked your teddy bear. The prices we got was quite a range. We found factories that can produce this teddy bear for as little as $2.25 per bear.
That's a very low price. We're not in the chase to the bottom. We're in the chase for a better product, a great company culture, great place to be, a great business to participate in. It's a nice livelihood, you know, on the one hand. How many meals a day can you eat?
Burns says he can afford to keep making his bear in America because he has a strong mail-order business and doesn't have to compete for shelf space. But big toy companies argue that overseas production is critical to their survival, enabling them to produce large volumes at the lowest possible price for consumers.
Stop exploitation!
But critics say it's not about lower prices, it's about higher profits. Labor activist Charles Kernigan has been studying manufacturing and markups.
What we're finding out is that the markup, when it goes from the offshore manufacturer to the retailer, we're looking 200, 300, 400, 500, 600% markups. I mean, it's unbelievable.
We wondered about the toys we'd seen. Remember Mr. Lee's factory, where there were underage girls making those bears for Eden Toys?
How much do these little Paddington bears?
One piece.
One piece. What can you produce it for?
70 cents. One piece.
Finished.
You heard it, just 70 cents to pack, produce, and ship this bear to America, where it's selling for $8. The markup, more than 1,000%. But there's a place that's even cheaper than Indonesia, a world we gained rare access to, a place that manufactures 80% of all the toys on the planet, China. Before receiving Most Favored Nation status in 1979, a tax break supposedly contingent on human rights, China did not produce a single toy for the U.S. In June, when Congress threatened to pull China's MFN status because of alleged human rights and copyright violations, the toy industry's David Miller successfully testified on China's behalf. Losing MFN status would have meant a 70% tax on toys made in China.
I have decided to extend unconditional Most Favored Nation trade status to China.
Today, toys made there aren't taxed at all. This is Shenzhen Province, nicknamed Santa's Economic Zone. Here, all-night factories churn out 1 out of every 2 toys sold in America. Here, more than 1 million migrant female workers eat, sleep, and work in factory compounds for just over $1 a day. That's half of what Indonesian workers earn.
Yes, the age is 16 to 25. Have an ID card. I'm not married.
I say this is prostitution.
Apo Leong, a Hong Kong-based advocate for Asian toy workers, monitors working conditions throughout the region.
These toy women workers mostly work more than 10 hours a day and sometimes without rest day or even holidays. And above all, every day they are exposed to dangerous chemicals from solvents, from what we call invisible killers.
With our hidden camera rolling, Dateline visited 2 Chinese factories.
Oh, it's mechanical. Yes.
In this one, we found young women working 12-hour shifts, making everything from Avon rabbits to one of this year's hottest sellers, 101 Dalmatians. The factory manager proudly pointed out the crowded living compounds just across the street, where 4,000 workers live.
10 to 12 per worker.
At the other factory, where popular action figures like Spider-Man and other cartoon characters are manufactured, We saw workers subjected to stifling fumes without protective masks or gloves. And we saw this. The living conditions. The young workers housed 16 to a room, a cramped series of bunks. The only privacy, a towel or a cardboard wall for those lucky enough to have one. All they own is kept here in spaces no bigger than a closet. No heat, no running water. As for safety, it's crowded conditions like these that played a role twice in the past 3 years in deadly fires at toy factories in Asia. The death toll, 265. Charles Kernigan, an outspoken critic of overseas labor practices, says in places like China and Indonesia, companies should not be left to police themselves.
Again and again and again, all of these companies that have claimed that they've had corporate codes of conduct, and they tell you, we screen our contractors, we interview them, they have to fill out audits, we have site inspections. It's nonsense.
With all due respect, can the industry be trusted to police itself? Why not independent monitoring?
Those who claim that they're independent and would be suitable to monitor have their own political agendas. Many times, the aim is to destroy trade with foreign countries.
But we wondered, if we hadn't looked, who would know about the fumes, the fire hazards, and the living conditions at those toy factories we visited in China? Who would know that those girls barely out of elementary school work full-time, day and night, in Indonesia?
If it can happen to Eden Toys, your family's company, can it happen to anybody?
It can. We really don't want it to continue. We want to see these practices eliminated.
But until that day comes, this message from a concerned voice in Asia to consumers in America. Tell companies you care how your toys are made and who makes them.
We are not announcing a boycott of toys made in China or made in Indonesia, but we are asking the consumers, make sure they think twice before they buy these Christmas toys for the American children.
It's always about care. Always. Alright. Time to meet a student who graduated without learning how to read. She knows that she's not the only one. Take a look.
Tall as a child.
Deborah Prestilio is 41 years old, a 1999 graduate of Patterson High School.
Give him
who 23 years later
has
still
made
struggles to read.
You well. It's embarrassing sometimes. You know, going in the stores, like if I go into Walmart and I gotta ask for help, and then sometimes people laugh at me. And
I did.
idea.
Prestilio has a learning disability caused in part by a hearing impairment that wasn't addressed until recently.
I have to wear my hearing aid every day.
She's partially deaf.
Correct. If I don't wear it, I cannot hear.
Which severely impacted her ability to learn.
My life is hard. When you can't read your mail, you can't read nothing. It's hard.
This is from her health insurance. It's not a bill.
Prestilio attended Baltimore City Public Schools for 12 years. She says she was given an IEP, or Individualized Education Program, designed for students with learning disabilities. With an IEP, she should have been given extra help, tutoring, specialized lessons. Instead, she says she was given the answers.
Some teachers would give me, like if we take a test, they would give me the paper so I can write the answers down so I wouldn't fail the class. And I'm like, well, that's not teaching me. That's just helping me cheat.
A According to her high school transcript, Pristilio got a 74 in English her freshman year. In 10th grade, she earned a 78, a C+. By 11th grade, her English score dropped to a 62. Her senior year for high school, she passed English with a 68, though she couldn't read her assignments. Do you have any idea how you got these grades if you're saying you can't read?
They passed. They did just passing me on to get me out of the school. They knew I didn't know how to read. They knew I didn't know how to do a lot of stuff, but they didn't care.
Pristilio earned a certificate of completion in June of 1999 and walked across the stage at graduation. When she looks back at high school, what she remembers is embarrassment, ridicule from other students and teachers. A shame that still follows her.
To this day, I still get laughed at and talk about, oh, this person don't know how to read, bullied. To this day, and it's not fair.
That experience, has shaped her life.
It's hard for me.
And the decisions she's made. The recent Project Baltimore investigation found most of the current students at Patterson High School are far behind in both math and reading. 77% of the high schoolers, according to one assessment, are reading at elementary school levels, with a dropout rate of 29% and a college enrollment rate of 21%. More Patterson students quit school than enroll in higher education.
It makes me mad. It breaks my heart. It's sad that they're still doing it to these children. It's sad. And I'm angry about it.
When Pristilio was a student at Patterson, she had dreams of becoming a veterinarian. She wanted a career and a family. But she knew, even then, those dreams were out of reach.
That was my dream. Having kids. Being married. Having kids. A bunch of kids. But I got crushed because I can't teach my children. I can't help them with their homework or nothing. And then if I can't help them, how they're going to be just like me. And I wasn't going to bring a child in this world where I can't teach them.
Pristilio never did have children. She never became a vet. She tried working at a restaurant, but was scared to even clean the tables because she couldn't read the labels on the cleaning supplies.
5, 10.
She hasn't had a job in years.
Lepers.
But she did get married.
Difficulties. I'm blessed. I have a husband that understands my reading situation and helps me every day with everything.
So when her mail comes, she can't read it, so she has to get me to read it, and then I have to explain to her what it is.
I can't text. Like if somebody texts me, I can't text them back. I have to have him do it for me.
She's made a life for herself, in spite of everything. But it's not a life she wishes on anyone else.
I know I'm not the only one. I know it's a lot of people out here, and I don't want children out there like me. I want them to learn how to read and know how to get through life and be able to do their dream job, to be able to have their family.
I'm Chris Pabst.
I don't want nobody out there like me.
And this is Project Baltimore.
It's just like this. Nobody should be picked on. Period. No ifs, ands, buts, or excuses about it. We'll be right back. Would you as a parent go through hell and high water to get the best education for your child, even though he or she is deaf? Well, from months ago, there was an angry parent that exploded at a school board meeting with almost the whole room nearly being evacuated. That's the subject of tonight's viral break. Let's take a look.
So at this time, we'll call our first speaker, Mr. Sean Porter.
Let me know when your us started.
Good evening, Mr. Porter.
Okay, so now that you're done jerking each other off with a bunch of trophies and participation certificates, here's the truth. You guys don't care about the disabled kids because my disabled son was deaf. You put him in with a bunch of disruptive kids, okay? Bad kids at Bester Elementary. There was no sign language interpreter, no instruction for sign language. We applied to Maryland School for the Deaf. He was accepted in December. He was supposed to be transferred in January. Dr. Annette Walters refused to sign the Board of Education form to transfer him to Maryland School for the Deaf. January, February, March, April, mid-April, I came in screaming about civil rights lawsuits and everything else, and then they immediately processed the transfer in May. 5 months late, he was transferred to a place where they could teach him sign language, where he was around other deaf and disabled children with similar abilities as him, so that he could have a normal life and actually communicate with kids and not get into fights every single day. He came home crying from Bester Elementary School every single day he went there because he got into fights with kids who didn't understand him because he was deaf. He couldn't talk, he couldn't sign, he didn't know anything. We were doing the best that we could, but you guys left him there. No child left behind. You people sit up here, waste millions of dollars, hire people with fake names like this Steve Edwards guy who's using a stage name to conduct official business, which in the state of Maryland, if he's signing contracts and legal documents, I believe is the crime of uttering, which is a felony. But you decide to leave my disabled son in with a bunch of bad kids at Bester Elementary to get his kicked on a daily basis because you didn't want to give up the funding you get from state, federal, and local. Okay, you didn't want to give up money, so you didn't allow him to get transferred until I came in and went psychotic in your lobby. And then you did. So everything that over there said about how great you are caring about kids is an absolute lie, Miss Williams. You should step down. You're a disgrace. You're a disgrace. I already know about you. You're a civil rights violator. You've been sued repeatedly. You're a disgrace, and you're a disgrace.
Mr. Porter.
You will not interrupt my time, ma'am. I have a First Amendment right to tell you my opinions. This is the right to redress of grievances in your face, Miss Williams.
We appreciate your participation in the meeting, and while I encourage you to address the Board of Education, I will give you time.
You worthless fucking cunt.
Okay.
You tortured my disabled son, and you will answer for it in a court of law.
I recommend that we go into closed session
I'm not at 5 minutes,
to
lady.
obtain legal advice pursuant to the general provisions article of the Annotated Code of Maryland.
You're silencing my free speech during I signed up 2 weeks ago to talk, and you're silencing my free speech.
Please, and a second. Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
You guys are going to silence my free speech because you don't like what I'm saying. That's viewpoint discrimination.
Mr. Porter, while I appreciate your participation,
no, you don't.
Would you please refrain from using profanity in your comments?
First Amendment, freedom of speech, that's my opinion of your job. You're doing a shitty job. You're a disrespectful person to that lady today. And a week ago to Darrell Evans, I watched you condescend a fellow board member like he was a 2-year-old. You chastised him for disagreeing with you. Lady, you know everything that's wrong with the bureaucracy that's here in this building. Downsville Pike is a disgrace. The teachers are doing a great job in this county, like the people that got the awards. But people like you hamstring their abilities to teach children like mine. You're a f***ing disgrace. F*** you. Have a good day.
Our next speaker is Robin Spickler. Mrs. Spickler?
Wow. That's Game Break for Saturday. I'm Jonathan Carmody. Stop bullying, speak up. Concentration, not strength. No jaywalking. I'll see you back here Monday night.